Welcome everybody. My name is Elena Pacenti and I work at the New School of Architecture and Design as Dean of the School of Design. And today I'm gonna be the moderator of this panel conversation. And the panel conversation will be on the positive influence between architecture and design education and community projects. At New School, we believe that there is no education in architecture and design without the opportunity of connecting with the community and to simulate real life projects. And this is for three main reasons. The first one is that we create an interaction between multiple stakeholders automatically. It's not just the designers and the designers per se, or the designer and the client, but also all the other stakeholders involved in processes that are always more challenging and difficult. The second reason is that this way allows us to embrace topics that are relevant and current in society, such as sustainability or healthy living or human relationships, and a lot of we as and the third reason is that this kind of collaboration allow to explore solutions without the constraints and the limitations that we normally have in the real life practice. So today we decided to approach this conversation not just in abstract terms, but starting from an example, from a real project that always help to give you know, visual and substance to the conversation. And I will introduce today's panel, and then I will leave it to Daniela for telling us what is the project that we are using as the trigger for the conversation. Today's panel is composed by Mike Stepner, who doesn't need presentations, Daniela Deutsch, who will present herself in a second, both from New School. And we have Brett Tullis from Tullis, principal of Silman Wright Architects, Heather Hunter, and if I pronounce it wrong, pardon me, executive director of Natural Resource System, UC San Diego, and Robert Hollis, architecture undergraduate student at New School. With this said, and with no further ado, I leave the mic to Daniela.
Thank you so much, Elena. I will take a second to already try to share screen. Hope for a positive resolution on that. So let me know if this is working. Does it? Does this work?
You're good.
No.
Yes,
oh.
It works.
Looks great.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So thank you for the initial introduction. Again, I'm Daniela Deutsch. I am associate professor at the New School of Architecture and Design in San Diego. I am also studio instructor for the fourth year undergraduate, larger studio as level coordinator, and teaching a variety of other classes at New School, especially environmental systems and architectural practice. So again, our studio, as I mentioned, a studio level coordinator, it's a large studio. Yeah, we don't just have one studio of 15 students. We have between a minimum of 55, a maximum of 75 this year, 85 students working on the same project together, obviously in teams or individually. So New School has this tradition of very large students focusing on similar topics every year, which is a great opportunity, yeah, to have, such a large kind of amount of people focusing on a topic. And last year, we have worked at a very special project right here in San Diego. This is also our 7th integrated design project. So again, our studio is called the Integrated Design Studio, and it's the most comprehensive project we offer in the undergraduate program before thesis. And every year we do something with the community. So one of the prerogatives of the students is to work with the community and to do real projects. So right before thesis, students learn to deal with real issues, real stakeholders, real clients, and also academically, pedagogically learn how to put together a very complex project. So so again, to go to our project, you see here the image, beautiful image overlooking San Diego downtown. This is actually taken from Kendall Frost, which is in Mission Bay. And this was, again, our 7th project that we focused on for 3 full quarters, with our students. First quarter being research and urban and landscape design, second being more massing and programmatics, and third being technical kind of resolution of this project up to some pretty deep level of detail. So the story of the project, we were approached by the UCSD's Natural Research System leadership, which are in this particular case, Heather Hunter, Dick Norris, and Isabel Key. They are the main 3 people taking care of this part of the reserve, which is called Kendall Frost Marsh. And we were approached for designing a wetland, education center, which is called WERC, Wetlands Teaching Wetland Education and Research Center for the northern shore of Mission Bay. So again, the UC San Diego Natural Research System is a pretty large system, So the UC San Diego Reserve is part of a much broader system across California. So it's important to understand that we are part of a larger system on the coast of California. And again, this particular project was also part of a broader effort, not just by the UC San Diego, but also by Audubon, which is a conservation kind of organization, and other various community groups. And all of this broader effort was to advocate for the city to help do extensive marsh restoration across the northern shore of Mission Bay. So this marsh restoration will have numerous benefits for the community, including cleaning up the current polluted waters of Rose Creek, protecting the Pacific Beach community for ongoing sea level rise, restoring fisheries in Mission Bay, and also providing a destination for everyone in San Diego and beyond. So that's kind of like the bigger picture, what we were approached to do. And again, this team approached our head of the department, Len Zegarski, who is a big promoter of architecture and ecology. And this got trickled into our studio to take over as the next challenge of 4th year. Going closer to what it is, again, just to understand the, a bit closed in kind of charge. We also wanted to bring together the San Diego Unified School Districts with other local universities and business communities in San Diego to educate the new generations in blue technology and environmental restoration, but also other ongoing global climate change issues. So this will educate the community, the children of our community on these very relevant ongoing problems. So that was their charge to us, a building that will draw all these different community elements together. So basically what we have tried to do, this is our studio. So that's WERC, the Wetlands Education and Research students. We compacted this for the students in a charge to build an iconic building, carefully designed on a selected site. So the students also had an opportunity to choose the site. So here again, you have a quick image of Mission Bay area within San Diego. This is again image developed by one of our students, Robert Hollis and Colin McGregor. And you can see a little bit how this is located. Most of San Diegans obviously know where this is. And then this is a zoom in of the corner that we were focused in. So that was what we were given and what we started with. Yeah, here you can see, I'm gonna try to get rid of this so you can see a little bit that, that legend. But those are all the components that the students had to work with. Yeah, you have here the Kendall Frost Marsh. Yeah, and here you have other areas. So before I go very quickly in some examples, so again, we needed an iconic building. Yeah, that was the charge. A carefully selected site within all these. The students had to decide through a very complex master plan where the site will ideally be after talking to the clients and the city and other stakeholders. So this was pretty much the city planning part of the project. And again, the students had to understand how this building will serve as a hub on how to do marsh restoration successfully. What's the best place for that in relationship with the marsh and the bay, and also how can we, in terms of a program, yeah, we needed a place where we can display kind of marsh related, you know, background labs and classrooms where students from the San Diego Unified District could do their own experiments in the marsh ecology. And also something that additionally to that will become a destination on Mission Bay, part of a circuit a tourist might take when visiting this city. So this will be a real destination iconic building, yeah? So again, for us, starting with Len Zegarski, our head of the architecture department, this was a long-standing professional and academic aspiration to deeper explore and investigate the intersection between architecture and our ecological connection with nature. And very importantly, back to the community, we needed to provide this connection for the students with a team of researchers at UCSD, with the Audubon Society, with the Coastal Commission, with city representatives involved and responsible for this area, as well as a wide variety of professionals that are really engaged conscientiously in the city, including Brett Tullis here in our panel. So New School was doing this for years, yeah, connecting with the community. And we think this was a very, very successful kind of outcome. So as a reminder, I will show you just a few examples related to the project. And I will take 5 more minutes for that, I got a note. Again, it's a very complex project, as you can see, and I wanna make sure I go over what really is the core of it. So this is, again, Kendall Frost Marsh. What is important to explain is that this was originally around 4,000 acres, and today is just under 40. That is pretty much less than 1% of its previous area. This has to be preserved, yeah. This is pretty much home to many types of plants and animals, including several endangered species. That again, this is one of the biggest issues is kind of preserving that, but also for the benefit of the people and nature of San Diego. So with this project, we've envisioned an appropriate restorative future for Kendall Frost. And that's pretty much the conclusion of this. How we succeeded to do that, especially as a relationship to the community and working with all these stakeholders. I'm gonna go very quickly through some examples and I'll be done in just a few minutes. So I'm gonna kind of fly through those. This is one of the first projects. Robert Hollis, that is part of our panel, was part of this team. And you can see here one of the final boards. This is part of a variety of boards the students have done, being just the final one. Again, very complex master plan as a water reclaiming park. Again, very ecologically savvy solutions, work with some ecological experts. Here you see a little snapshot of this water park and the complexity of how the students went to beyond just designing a building. Here you see some quick diagrams in the process of the design of this particular building, you know, some ground level plans from above and see how well they are integrated with the nature. And some energy diagrams that are very important for a project like this in 4th year, design in detail for passive systems. This is a larger kind of view of this building overlooking the bay. And again, initial surroundings. So again, this was a building highly integrated in its surrounding with landscape design and urban design. Beyond just the building design, the students had to kind of deal with. And I'm gonna just go through the images and then move on. So this is again another project, the Wingman, Michelle and McKenna. So here you see another take on this iconic building and the master plan. That's an example of what we call a successful iconic process, solution as well as the previous one. Yeah, so this is, and you can see how well they were integrated. All the design around, it's also done by the students, integrated into the marsh and the marsh needs. And as I go through that, I'm gonna, in 2 minutes, give it back to the next. So those are the master plans the students had to develop. So this is another example of a solution. Each group did another master plan. And again, with the goal of an iconic building. And the buildings were highly developed programmatically, urbanistically, inside and out. As you can see, we also had a team of interior designers. And as I finish this imagery, I wanted to tell you that again, this is Spencer. He worked alone. So we had groups of 2 or 3, but also people that work at the project alone. So I would like to say we were in this year, in the end, 54 architecture students and 19 interior design students. So it was a highly collaborative setting. Yeah. And again, the solutions differ, as you can see, from very iconic in a way to very maybe simple, but very well fitted into the landscape with incredibly strong passive systems. And we had a very, very varied set of solutions. So these are just 5 projects out of 30, yeah. So again, another one, and I will end with this. Yeah, you see again the complex master plans the students end up with. And all this was done in a collaboration with the community. So basically, as I end that, yeah, this is the last slide. Thank you for your time. I tried to compact a 3/4 thing and I went a bit over time, but I will then now give these to the next.
It's Mike, Daniela, it's me.
Yes. Mike, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I wanted to kind of go through over too much, but again,
you have to stop sharing the screen now.
Yes.
So, thank you, Daniela. This was amazing. I hope that
it was too much.
for us, we know the project and we have been involved in this. So I hope that gave the idea to the public, so that the scope of this session is not, the goal is not to go in depth in the projects per se, but we will happy to talk more about those if the guests are interested, and by email us and we will be happy to tell you more. So I would start probably the conversation with Mike, because Mike, you have been a proponent of community projects from the very beginning. And I cannot say how long ago, right? How many years ago?
It's been a while.
So the question for you is why? Why community and design projects and education? And what are the mutual benefits of this kind of collaborations for both education and community?
Well, I think, first, the New School has been involved in these kinds of projects almost since the beginning, and we're almost 40 years old now. So that predates me. But I think it's important for a couple of reasons that you mentioned and Daniela mentioned, that in the design of a project, it takes a collaboration. It's a collaboration of multidisciplinary backgrounds, the technical part of it. But it also means that there are, and we want the students to understand, there are many clients. The client is not necessarily And very seldom is the most important client the person who writes the check to the consultant. As Daniela mentioned, she worked with the community organizations. She worked with the Audubon Society, the Coastal Commission, as well as UCSD as the prime client. And what we want the students to really begin to see is that you really need to understand that it's much more than just the technical aspects of designing something. It is the political aspects, it's the social aspects, it's public health aspects. It's all these things and all the interests that are represented. The project that Daniela presented is in an area that's very controversial about what should happen to Mission Bay Park. How should UCSD proceed? What should happen around that park and connections to it? So the students really need to be aware of all those things that begin to shape it. Planning and design is a contact sport. You have to engage with everybody. So I think the advantage for the students, it's a great learning experience, but there's also an advantage for the community. We as professionals are seldom trusted. We always, what's in it for me? What's in for the client? Can I trust you? And things become very controversial, very heated. And one of the advantages of students, while they don't have a lot of experience, they don't have any baggage. They're not trying to get something out of the project other than a learning experience. So people will listen to what they have to say, and ideas can be explored that perhaps if a set of consultants had gone in to look at this project, it wouldn't have gotten as far as the class did. We plant a lot of seeds, and this has been the history of the school for all these years, is that we do projects like this, people look at them, they plant a seed. Why didn't we think of something like that? Why can't we pursue that? And we have a lot of projects out there today that are underway in various stages that have been initiated by some of the student ideas that come out of these. So I think it's the students get a learning experience working with all these groups and all these issues. Mm-hmm. The community gets some ideas and concepts that can be explored and further researched and perhaps actually developed. And so it's a two-way street. And I think it really is a benefit that students, when they leave school, know that there's a broader audience out there that they will be working with in their professional life. So I think that's why we do these things. And that's, I think, why Heather approached the school. And I'll turn it over to Heather. She can talk about what she saw come out of this and why she felt that this was a good idea to work with the new school on a project like this.
Well, thank you, Mike. And yeah, we were very excited to work with the new school. So, and thank you to Daniela for the great background. Just to add a little bit to the background. So again, I work for the UC Natural Reserve System. We manage Kendall Frost Marsh, which neighbors the city property in Northeast Mission Bay, which is in the middle of a planning process right now. And we're very interested in the outcome of that planning process because we neighbor that site. And Kendall Frost, as Daniela described, Kendall Frost is a very special place. It's the last 40 acres of natural habitat in Mission Bay, which is wetlands. Mission Bay was once covered with 4,000 acres of wetlands. So this is the last vestige of natural habitat. So our goal, and really the goal of the Mission Bay Master Plan, which Mike was involved in developing many years ago, is to really to protect this habitat while at the same time maximizing public access. And in this day and age, also taking climate change and sea level rise into account, which is really important. So we felt that an education and science center on the city property that is in the middle of the planning process is the best way to do that, to protect the habitat while also maximizing public access and incorporating the science that's happening around us, climate change and sea level rise. So I contacted New School about 1.5 years ago. They were excited. We both agreed that this project was so complex. It really needed, they needed a year to, it needed a year. So my role was, I was involved in the planning, of course.
Heather, sorry to interrupt you. We cannot see you.
Yes, mm-hmm. Yeah.
We cannot see you.
Really?
Yeah, it looks like your video's off.
It is on. It's on. You know,
my computer is. I think that my internet connection isn't good enough.
It's okay, sorry.
I can.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Yeah, I think it's my internet connection. So I could stop and I'd have to log off and log back on again, or we could just keep going without. Do you see anything?
Keep going. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. I'll just keep going. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh boy. So anyway, so my role was I was involved in the planning, of course, and then once the school year started, I organized a team of people to give the students a series of background lectures on the history of the project, the ecology of the region, and relevant regulations. We took a field trip to the site, and again, several different stakeholders talked to the students. And then I organized the Natural Reserve System team to describe the building that we want, the uses of the building that we wanted, this Wetlands Education Research Center. And then, so I was involved in planning, I was involved in working with the students, and then probably most importantly, the students gave a series of presentations throughout the year, sort of kind of as they progressed. So in the beginning, it was a landscape design, and then it was a site selection, and then it was the building plans, and first, concept design, and then a more final design. And I organized our team to participate in those presentations. So as the client, we gave the students feedback, which was really a great experience. My expectation of what I wanted to get out of this project was really a visualization of what could be in this space. And as Mike said, all of us, professionals, we come at this with a lot of baggage and a lot of constraints. And really, I teach at UCSD, so I know that students can really have a set of fresh eyes and can really look at a situation in very innovative ways. So, I really wanted a visualization of what could be, thinking about this outside of the box. And I think, as Daniela said, we're hoping for an iconic building, a really wow building that could accomplish our goals of, again, protecting the habitat while maximizing public access. Public access really involves both the nuts and bolts of public access. Where are people going to park, and how are you going to get people there without, eating up a bunch of natural habitat with parking lots? So there's that aspect of public access, but then there's also the bigger aspect of public access, which is, if we have a really amazing building, that will bring people to the site, and maybe even people who are not interested in learning more about climate change or the environment, but once they're there, because of this really amazing building, then we can bring them in and accomplish our goals of educating people about the environmental situation in regard all around climate change and sea level rise globally and mission-based specifically. So really, we wanted to have this visualization to show people what could be. And then we can take this visualization to decision makers and ultimately donors we're not at that point yet, but at some point in the future. So that's what I hoped. And that is certainly what we got. I mean, the interaction with the new school was really fantastic, and the students were amazing and came up with some really, some designs that really were outside the box. So it was we got exactly what we wanted. So it was really a fantastic collaboration. So I would like to ask Daniela and Robert, what challenges did both of you, and what challenges did you, both as instructor, well, I guess mainly as instructor for now, Robert can talk about his challenges later, but as an instructor, what challenges did you have given this type of project and the complexity of this kind of project with so many different stakeholders? And how do you feel like the students reacted to that complexity?
I will keep my answer short, so we are a bit behind, and I want Robert at the end to have a lot of time to talk as the student. But there definitely are challenges. This is a very, very complex project, academically, pedagogically, from just designing something as complex programmatically and ecologically, but then also the connection with the stakeholders. So challenges were for sure pedagogical. There is a question here, by the way. Somebody asked if there was, where was this question? There were discussion protocols used to facilitate design conversation. This was Kali Friedrich. To facilitate conversations between community stakeholders and student groups. That's a small piece of the challenges. How do we facilitate these? Yeah, we are an academic entity, and then we have a city stakeholder entity. So we had to decide with the leadership of the school, within our own instructional team, how we do that, and with the UCSD team, how we approach these stakeholders. And yes, we developed protocols, and we have not just had a conversation with the city without discussing these with the client and with the students in depth and preparing them up front. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then the challenges are in the design process, even for us as instructors. This is not a simple project for a normal architect to do. Yeah, I know architects that are licensed that have not done a project like in that complexity, and it doesn't mean anything bad, but again, this was for us the most complex project we've done, and the challenges were in the design, in the communication, in the protocols. And yeah, we think we've succeeded, so now we're ready for more. But that were the challenges. How do you communicate? And in the end, for me as an architectural designer, the challenge is how do these students become architects of the future? How do they, because that's my project. My projects are the students, yeah. How are they ready for the new challenges, for the new way of thinking, for innovative thinking, but also for more collaboration with the community, because that's the future. In the past, we have not worked with the community as much as we do, and we will have to do in the future. So I'm gonna leave it to that. And Elena, you moderate who goes next if we end with Robert or not, but this is my quick answer.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. Maybe the question next is to Brett, as since you acted as a consultant and advisor and reviewer and jury member for the student project. So what do you think is the main advantage, and what's the main limit of such an approach? And what part of the professional practice, in a way, the students are exposed to, and what, if anything, is missing, of course, is a simulation.
Sure, I'll try to remember all that. It's a long question, but let me just say it was very exciting to be part of this conversation, because this conversation that we had, this discussion, the project with the Kendall Frost Marsh, is really sort of a microcosm of the kind of discussion we're going to have in the future about our environment and the built environment and natural environment. This little piece right here represented the challenges we'll face going forward of how do we blend in, how do we support the natural environment and still keep the built environment. So from that perspective, it was an amazing visionary project that talks about how we're all going to have to approach new projects, which is slightly different. I've always appreciated the approach that the New School has taken with the integrated studio, and the integrated studio being one where they bring in, professionals to help the students understand how to create an integrated design that's not just architecture. And in this case, normally we're talking about the building, we're talking about structure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire life safety, landscape, civil, but this went further. This particular project went further and looked at the sort of ecological impact. It predicted what happens when sea level rise gets to a point that it's going to impact the ability to use this building. It looked beyond the short term, the next 10, 20 years, and said, hey, it has to be a bigger conversation. And so from that perspective, there was a whole other group of people that get involved that highlighted the complexity of projects that you don't really see until you're out in the professional practice. In the professional practice, you see it all the time. There's numerous user groups, clients, owners, you've got city, you've got state departments, codes, all these things need to be gathered together. And somehow you have to make sense of all this and create something amazing out of this soup of chaos. And that's kind of, you know, this was it. This was the soup of chaos. Of you have UCSD, and they are participating in this project. You have the city of San Diego, who has their, you know, what they would like to get out of the project, the Audubon Society, the community of Mission Beach itself, the retailers who own property in there, who wanted their businesses to keep going, the community of San Diego that wanted this to be a resource for them. So to me, this was an amazing experience for students to understand the sort of the dichotomies that are going on, this sort of the things that don't make sense, and somehow you have to make sense of it. That's what this project was about. So I think from that perspective, it was successful. And as you can see from the presentations that Danielle was showing, some pretty amazing stuff. There's a lot of focus on the building because this is a school of architecture, but the sites were also quite amazing. They're very thoughtful, very integrated. They thought about what would happen to the site, you know, and many different solutions. So I think it was very successful from that standpoint. So I guess that's kind of my, you know, my moments about that. And I guess I'd really like to hear a little bit more from, you know, the students who are involved in that. And we have Robert Hollis on board to help us with that. So Robert, how did you feel about this project coming into this thing where you've got multiple different people with different ideas, and this idea of, you know, this environmental structure, that it's not just a building, it's, you know, you got to think outside the building. How did you guys feel about that?
Well, it was a total curveball, I think, that was thrown at us, to say the least, because, you know, we're so used to being in this urban sprawl with these very particular constraints within a city. You know, so we were expecting, oh, I'm going to do a high rise, I'm going to do something, you know, magnificent. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you're in, you know, nature, you're in the environment, you're thinking. So it kind of forced us to think in a whole different way than we were used to, which I really liked. And I think I got a lot out of it.
Gotcha. Was there, how did you resolve some of these issues that were in conflict with each other? I know the city of San Diego had a different view of what they thought the park was going to be than UCSD and the Audubon. How did you bring that to a resolution and figure out what was the right way to do it, like in your case?
Well, it never felt like there was a right way to do it. You know, there were so many options out there. We actually changed our whole master plan maybe halfway through the year or halfway through our process, because there's so many things getting thrown at you from, you know, one side to the other. One was like city, the other one, you know, was the environment and the preservation of the marsh. So what we did is we really tried to find where a lot of the goals overlapped and where they conflicted. And where they overlapped was like, okay, let's run with that. Let's start moving in that direction. And then where they conflicted was kind of like, okay, we need to be more innovative in that sense. So we took something that was kind of outside of the box in that sense. If that answers the question, we had to be really innovative.
So can you give me an example? Where was it? What was it that you did that you thought was an example of taking some conflicts, resolving the goals, and coming up with something that was innovative that maybe bridge the gap in these two different ways?
Good question. I would say, because we had to look at sea level rise. That was very unexpected. I thought we were going to be in the middle of a city or somewhere like that, you know. And at the same time, they were going, hey, let's do an iconic building, you know. So on one end, you want this really attractive structure. You want a place where everyone can come and hang out. And you're imagining, oh, it was going to be a really big footprint here. But we don't want a big footprint because we're in nature, we're right on the water. So we took the two, you know, conflicting propositions and we said, you know what, we're going to lift the building up above the ground, we're going to depress the land, and we're going to make it to where if sea level rise becomes a big issue, it's going to be mitigated through the terrain. So we worked with the terrain. Yeah, as you can see here below, the structure is all really low. So it's like a buffer zone. And we made it like a mix of plaza, and then it can also fill up with water. And then the structure is lifted above the ground. So I think that was one of the ways we had to be innovative. And then of course with water, we wanted water to be integrated through the entire project. We wanted to be cleaning the water and cleaning up the bay because we found that as like a big issue was the water quality.
Got it. And And as a, you know, was this kind of your first exposure to more of a collaborative approach to architecture? I know you probably worked in teams before. How did you feel about this idea of collaborating not only with the, you know, consultants, architects, structural engineers, but also how was that interaction, collaboration also with the community? How did that go?
Yeah, it was a lot, you know, a lot to take in. It was unexpected, and we've never done anything like that. We have done team projects, but I did not expect what we were put into. It was fun, you know, we got a lot out of it. Having a lot of professionals involved, having a lot of different opinions involved, really drove us. So we had to really let go of some of the control in this instance and go, okay, what do they want? How are we going to work with them, for them, and what are we going to get out of them? So I think the whole collaborative thing it started off really shaky and really hard, but then eventually once you get used to that, it becomes this easy kind of cycle of, okay, let's talk to these people, and let's come together and figure out what we got out of that.
Gotcha. And sort of lastly, what did you like most about this project? What is it that you think will stick with you out of this whole experience the most?
Great question. Yeah, no, this whole project has stuck with me. It really changed my way of thinking, because when I came into the studio, I thought we're going to be in Seattle or downtown, and I was thinking, oh, I want to do this high rise. I want it to be awesome. But this made me start to really understand what role architecture and buildings can play in the natural environment, and just how beneficial they can actually be. Before this, I never thought of that. So now it got me on this path in my career and in my education, is I'm really looking at the built environment mixed with the environment, the natural environment, and education, and how well those three can actually be integrated was kind of like mind-blowing to me. So yeah, I got a lot of that.
Awesome. Well, I think we're on schedule, and we can open up for some other panel discussion if we have some. So
thank you, Robert and Brad. Basically, it looks like you have been interrogated for Robert, like final presentation setting. So first of all, I wanted to mention that we have Carlita from Lima, Peru among our guests. So that's amazing. I always love, you know, this is one of the good dimensions of being, you know, virtual and remote, that is we go beyond the borders of the normal relationship. So thank you for being us. So I think we can take some questions. I have, there is one from Frida Moreno, who's also a student of ours and in product design. And she says, do you have any tips on how to manage projects with such a high level of complexity? I don't know if it's for you, Robert.
Okay, I think I can answer that. I guess you have to take a deep breath about every step of the way, because working with teams on such a complex project, I mean, there's so many different variables going on, from the exterior, interior structure to the energy diagrams. You really have to be organized, compartmentalize everything, and make sure that you're listening really well. If the better you can listen and repeat what is being told to you and what's asked of you, I think the easier the process is going to go. And always taking a breath before, you know, responding, before making decisions, and kind of letting go some of your control. Because what I want to do is I want to control. You really have to learn to let some of that go.
You know, if I can just add to that, I think Robert made a very important point. It's listening. There are so many viewpoints and so many issues and so many people who have an interest in what happens in a place like Mission Bay Park, that before you even pick up your pencil, you need to listen to and try to understand all the things that are going on and how they overlap or how they conflict, and then how are there solutions or are there paths you can take to really come up with a solution that meets or addresses at least all the things that are raised by this vast constituency of people that has an interest in this area, or any area for that matter.
Absolutely. I would just like to say how proud you make me, Robert, because that's the first thing I want to hear from my students, that they learn how to listen. And again, not everybody may be there, but you have to listen. And we as faculty and collaborators, as we are part of the team, we have to listen to the community. We have to listen even to people like Mike. Yeah, he started this at New School, basically. We are a community, even within New School. We have to talk to each other, share, listen, and definitely be ready to roll up your sleeves. This is a project that implies work, hard work, and what we want students to learn on top of all the architectural process complexities is be ready to care about what's around it, care about the people, the planet, but also care about your team. Yeah, this is a in purpose complex project, so the future generation of architects coming from New School are ready to handle these complexities right off the bat. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and if I can add, is like one of the effect of this, which is amazing, is the systemic thinking, right? And embracing this, the aspects that otherwise not necessarily you see immediately, right? Like the relationship with nature that now after COVID, everybody is so aware of, but we forgot for decades in building, right? And now all of a sudden is a priority again, because we got, separated from this. And anyway, so I think we have 10 minutes, so we can get some more questions. There is one from Emis that asks, when will the design projects be presented for selection? What is the timeline to actually seeing these projects being in process of building and execution and integration into the community?
I would like to give this to Heather for a spontaneous reaction. What do you think, Heather? If you're still there. There were some technical difficulties.
Sorry, I was muted. Now, so I logged off and logged back on again. So now you should both be able to hear me and see me. Is that true? Great. Okay. Sorry. My internet connection was bad. Anyway, so before anything can happen, the city has to finish their planning process. And that's not going to be for at least a year. It was going to be a year from now, but with COVID, I don't know, I think the timelines are all changed. So what we really want to use these designs for is, as I said, to help the decision makers think outside of the box, to show them what amazing thing could be in the northeast corner of Mission Bay. What could put San Diego on the map in terms of both sustainability and architectural design. So what we're going to use these designs for is to try and convince them, that could happen. And hopefully that will influence their the planning process and influence and help to convince people that that something really amazing could happen in Northeast Mission Bay. But that planning process is still very much underway. So nothing has been decided. So we are going to use these plans to help move that discussion in a positive direction. So that's what these plans are going to be used for.
These projects
Mike,
will have a life long after Robert graduates and goes on to something else. Mm-hmm. And after Daniela retires. Mm-hmm. I've been around a long time, and I've seen projects that students have initiated and planted seeds. 5, 10, 15 years later, something's coming up out of the ground that is based on student work. And we get requests at the school. Somebody did a project back in 2015 on such and such. Can we get a copy of that? Because we really think there's some ideas in there that we want to pursue. And I've had the benefit of sitting in lots of meetings over the years where people raise these issues and talk about projects the students did and an idea that had been planted that they want to pursue. And that's part of the importance of this learning experience for the students, I believe.
You know what struck me, Mike, about this was how influential this is on the democratic process. Like the idea of getting discussion going, which can be difficult, like this gets the discussion going, where otherwise it's just status quo. And it can be it really underscores the importance of this. We think of it as an exercise, but in fact, it really is opening up the dialogue that henceforth didn't exist. So it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
And a great tool.
And I would like to add, so we did, after the students gave their final presentations in June, and then a couple weeks after that, we actually had an open house in which all of the community, all of us invited everybody we knew that was interested. And any number of, there's an election, obviously we all know there's an election coming up, and many city council seats different people are running. And many of those city council folks running for city council attended this open house. So those seeds, so we're already planting. So those are the people who are going to be deciding what goes on in Northeast Mission Bay. So we've already, I think, made great progress in planting those seeds in the minds of the decision makers. Look what cool thing could go on in Northeast Mission Bay. So that process is already starting.
Thank you all. I think we have in a few couple of minutes left, we can pick Carrie's question. That was, I have read about prior projects with interest. Can you give us an update or any that have been implemented in whole or in part? So we need to think about this, Carrie. We do a lot.
There are a lot out there, and I give you a long story. A number of years ago, several administrations, the North Park community came forward and wanted to calm traffic to solve issues of through traffic and crime and everything else. And then Mayor Pete Wilson assigned 2 staff people to work with a studio class on traffic calming. Some things were built by engineers that were terrible. But today, one of the people who the mayor assigned is now the planning director for SANDAC, the regional agency. And part of the things that the students proposed were traffic circles. And she remembered, and she has the money. And so there are traffic circles going into North Park and Claremont that are designed as community assets, not something that a traffic engineer dreams up. And it's all the result of the work that she did as a, sort of a visiting person like Brett was many years ago with a studio class. And there are things like that going on. In Balboa Park, they're doing some work in the Palisades. And part of that was that they're using as a student study that was done about activating that area. So these things will take on a life. The students are long gone, but the work is still there. The ideas have been planted.
Mike, thanks so much for sharing that story. I live in North Park and I'm seeing all the traffic circles getting installed, and that just kind of makes the story that much richer about how it got here. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, I still have a memory.
Mike has many stories, I can tell you that. So I think we are running out of time. So if there are no more questions, I think we can end the meeting, unless I forgot some question from the chat. You guys, you can unmute yourself and talk. Otherwise, I will. I see new messages.
So Elena, I know that there was a question about which UCSD department was involved in this. Was from Shar Garcia.
I thought
so it was the UC Natural Reserve System. which is an entity unto itself. And it's part of a, well, it's a UC San Diego Natural Reserve System, which is part of a larger UC Natural Reserve System, which is a network of 41 different properties, wild lands all across the state that are set aside for education, research, and public service. So, so Kendall Frost Marsh is one of those 41 properties. So it's the Natural Reserve System that was, that collaborated with the New School.
Thank you, Heather, for specifying. Okay, so, well, I want to say thank to everybody, and I think there's, you know, the possibility of celebrating experience and discussing on experiences like this, and an event, a new platform like Design Week is amazing, and I want to really congratulate the team of Design Week who put together this amazing bunch of events and things in a very short time, and with all the difficulties of the current times. And so I saw there was Susan Merritt with us, and I want to say thanks to Stacy Kelling and all the people. They have been really amazing. And thank you all for participating. And like if we were in Switzerland, we want to close by 4 on time, said the Italian. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elena.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you all the people who joined us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for the questions.